Hey everybody, we need to talk about Alex Galchenyuk because he has had quite the week here, and not really in a good way as he has been traded twice in the past few days and continues to get tossed around the NHL to team. Before we begin and get into it, I just ask that you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Both of those things help out so much and are greatly appreciated. But let's get right into it here, looking at Alex Galchenyuk. And let's bring up the trade screen here. As you can see, he was originally traded on the 13th from the Ottawa Senators to the Carolina Hurricanes, and along with Cedric Paquette in exchange for Ryan Dzingel. He did not last very long with the Hurricanes as he was immediately waived and sent down to the AHL. But before he could ever even play a game, just a couple days later, yesterday, he was then traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for Igor Korshkov and defenseman David Warsofsky. So Galchenyuk here not lasting very long with Carolina, obviously, and I think they traded for him to trade him again. I don't think he was ever going to play a game for the Hurricanes. I think when they made him a part of that original Dzingel deal, they knew at that moment that they were going to be trading him again. So I think, he's just that's what they had in mind with him. But we look here, Alex Galchenyuk's career has really gone downhill over the past few years here. The last year and a 2.5 years or so, it's really not been good. So as you can see, he was drafted 3rd overall in 2012, a notoriously bad draft. That was the Yakupov year. That's where, pretty much, Morgan Rielly was definitely the best player taken in the top 10 there, and Morgan Rielly was taken 5th overall. And it's been that 2012 draft, looking back on it, was pretty much a disaster. But not a good year going here for Galchenyuk. He's 27. He played 8 games for the Senators and only had 1 goal, 1 point, and was -6. And if we look down here at his career numbers, obviously started with the Canadiens who drafted him and played there for a number of years. But since leaving Montreal, he's played for Arizona. His numbers went down. He went from 51 points in his final season with Montreal down to 41. Then he goes to Pittsburgh, only has 17 points in 45 games. Then he finishes last year with Minnesota, only has 7 points in 14 games. That was actually a little bit of a step back up for Galchenyuk. Then this offseason, he struggles to find a job. He ends up signing with Ottawa and only has 1 goal and 1 point in 8 games, is -6. And then he gets traded to Carolina. NHL.com hasn't even processed the Toronto trade yet. They still have him with Carolina, but as we know, yesterday he was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he's been traded again. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then adding in Carolina makes 6, and Toronto makes 7 teams that he has played for since the 2017-18 season. So since 2018, when he finished up with Montreal, he has played for 7 different teams now in the NHL. He keeps getting tossed around like a hot potato, and the numbers keep getting worse. He had this really good 2015-16 season with 30 goals and 56 points, and everyone kind of thought that was Galchenyuk's coming out party. Then he had injury issues the next year. Final season in Montreal, he had a 50-point year. There was still a lot of hope for Galchenyuk. He goes to Arizona, and it's been all downhill from there. And if you look at Galchenyuk's trade history, and when he was traded for Max Domi in that Arizona-Montreal deal back in, before the 2018-19 season, that was a big deal. That was supposed to be 2 players that were going to be stars in the NHL. He was traded for a valuable piece there in Max Domi, but as the trades have gone on, what he's been traded for has gotten less and less. And then if we go back here, he's literally a throw-in to a deal for a couple of bottom 6 forwards, and then he literally gets traded for a veteran AHL defenseman and Igor Korshkov, who I really don't know much of anything about. So Not exactly a top tier level, top tier guys that he's being traded for here. It's been a long, well, I guess not even really that long, but over the past 3 years, it's been a straight downward slide for Alex Galchenyuk in the NHL. And like I've said many times on this channel, I think this is his final season in the NHL. I think the end of the road is coming. You knew that when he wasn't really getting much interest in this past offseason in free agency, and he ended up signing with Ottawa, you were kind of like, he's running out of chances here around the league. And now that Ottawa's traded him, and Carolina, literally he was just a throw-in that they immediately traded again. I think it's pretty obvious that his time in the NHL is closing out here. He just hasn't put up numbers. He hasn't lived up to it, and I think teams have given him chances after chances, and he hasn't taken advantage of the opportunities. Is he going to play for the Leafs? I don't know. I feel like he's kind of a depth guy. He'll probably be on their taxi squad. I really think it's unlikely that he's ever a regular in that Leafs lineup. He's a guy that they could throw in if they start to get injury issues, or they have a guy or two out of the lineup up front. Maybe he does get into a forward spot and play in the bottom six, but I don't think he's going to be a regular in that Leafs lineup. I think he's more of a taxi squad depth guy. And like I said, I think he's probably out of the NHL at this year. He had trouble getting a contract this past offseason. He hasn't done himself any favors with only 1 point this season. I think he's going back to Europe. I think he's going to Europe after this season. He'll probably play in the KHL or another league over there, probably the KHL. But I think his time's run out here in the NHL. I think, looking at everything, looking at his career stats, looking at the downward trajectory since 2018 for him, I think teams have really kind of are done with it at this point, and they've soured on him, and he hasn't been able to step back up and get his career back on track. So I would say it's very likely that Galchenyuk heads over to Europe and plays there for the foreseeable future after this season, because I don't think he's getting another contract in the league. But that's just my opinion. I wanted to touch on the Galchenyuk situation because it's very rare that you see a player traded back, quickly, back to back like that. But obviously, especially a guy who's been on such a downward slope. We've seen it before, like when Mike Hoffman got traded to the Sharks, and then immediately sent to the Panthers. Like we've seen that before, but Hoffman was like a wanted commodity. Galchenyuk's being traded because he's not wanted. It's almost the exact opposite situation. And his career has really gone downhill. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store, donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.